keep it simple, play our game, and get Ducks in deep. Hey everybody, I'm Zach Cavanagh, Anaheim Ducks reporter for the Sporting Tribune, and we're back in Orange Country after following the Ducks on their season opening road trip. We'll review the first two games of the season and talk a little bit about Beckett Sennecke in the newly formed kid line. And for the first time this season, we'll answer your questions in our monthly Monday mailbag. But first, subscribe to the Sporting Tribune on YouTube for all of the latest Ducks video coverage, including new episodes of Ducks in Deep and video coverage from practices, post-game, morning skates, and everything in between. Follow the Sporting Tribune on all platforms at Sporting Trib, and read all of our written coverage on our website at thesportingtribune.com. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Zach Cav. That's at ZACHCAV. And on TikTok and Blue Sky at Zach Cav Sports for all the latest Ducks news, articles, tidbits, videos, and so much more. And I'm now on Patreon. If you've enjoyed my coverage, please consider showing your support with a Patreon subscription as we try to grow the Sporting Tribune and Ducks in Deep into the best Ducks coverage on the internet. If you want to see more on-the-ground road coverage like we just had in Seattle and San Jose, it will only be possible with your support. So please consider a subscription on Patreon to keep this thing going. Now, let's get in deep. All right, let's get into this 2025-26 season, and we'll start in Seattle with the season opener, where really only two headlines kind of come out of this one, and it's unfortunate that it's just the two headlines because they're pretty high-level headlines. First of all, Beckett Sennecke scoring his NHL debut goal in his NHL debut, first career goal, second shift of his career, first shot of his career, goes back post. A lot of good hard work by Mason McTavish on the forecheck, finds him in front for the tap-in. Beckett has obviously been a headline of this entire opening stint, right? Between making the team in the first place, it's pretty good for a 19-year-old. Secondly, getting bumped up to that second line due to injuries to Ryan Strome, forcing some lineup shifts, and he has taken advantage of it. That line with Cutter and Mason has been the best Ducks line through two games. They've been relentless on the forecheck. They've been finding the soft spots. They've been getting their sticks in lanes. Not the best defensively quite yet, that group, but when they're putting the offensive impact that they have, it's kind of hard to argue with the success. But to Beckett specifically, beyond the goal he scored there, beyond the power play goal he ends up scoring in San Jose as well, both of those goals, first of all, on the net front, as Chris Kreider said, and I talked to him a little about that today, he said after the San Jose game when he scored his goals, which we'll get to, you go to the front of the net and the puck will find you. And there's always that old adage of, the puck finds goal scorers and you go to the net if you want to score. Beckett has been doing that. He's been getting to the front of the net. He's been causing havoc. He almost had at least one or two more in San Jose, aside from the one he scored. It's been an incredible debut, and I think as I was starting to say, beyond the goal scoring itself, his hockey IQ, he just knows where to go. He's playing very smart. He's not throwing any of these blind passes like he did early in training camp, especially, and in the preseason. He's already become such a smarter hockey player than he was when he arrived in camp just 3-4 weeks ago. And I think the thing that's also standing out is just that calmness with the puck. He's, still not physically where you want him to be in terms of his strength, but he's just making some really smart plays, some calm, composed plays, and it's all clicking. So great things to see from him. Will he stay up? We didn't talk to Quenneville today, but I'm certainly going to ask him about this in the morning skate now that with Beckett's start, I wonder if that blows up the development plan a little bit. I think he's still 19 years old. He will hit a wall at some point, but you cannot argue with the results so far. And it will be interesting what happens when Ryan Strome is healthy, what goes on with these lines, because I think Beckett's making a pretty good case early on that things should stick as they are, and it will cause some interesting decisions, some ripple effect throughout the lineup. The other thing to get on this Seattle game, what an incredible start. And it would play to everything we had talked about Joel Quenneville instilling from the start about a hard work ethic, just trying to be the hardest working team in the NHL. The Ducks were absolutely relentless in that first period in Seattle. I'm just going to read the stats off here. They outshot Seattle 16-5 in the first period of the season. In addition to that, at 5-on-5, they had a massive advantage in shot attempts, 33-11, scoring chances, 14-2, high danger chances, 8-0, and according to Natural Stat Trick, all these analytic stats, they earned 92.2% of the expected goals in that first period. I can safely say there was not a single period during the Greg Cronin era, not even a single game that went as well, maybe even a single shift, realistically, that went as well as that entire first period went for Anaheim from a pressure and analytics and shot generation standpoint. Now, they were still tied 1-1 after one, and they ended up losing the game. They still end up with, on the good side of the shot chart, and I think they still end up with the edge in all the analytics stats by the end of it, but not nearly as much as it was in that first period. And you saw that sort of get back up to speed in San Jose. That first period in San Jose was equally dominant, and again, still a tie score, but then that game is sort of wacky in many ways. So it doesn't follow the same script. But that is what this Joel Quenneville Ducks hockey is going to be, I think, is that opening period in San Jose or in Seattle. And when I talked to Alex Killorn this morning at practice, he said that it's difficult to play like that, but when you do, you get rewarded. And so now it's just about establishing a consistency, playing that sort of game for 60 minutes. It's incredibly difficult to keep up that sort of effort for 60 minutes every night, every game for an entire 82 game season. But when it comes to, at its purest, what Joel Quenneville wants this team to be, that period is it. So it'll be interesting to see if this team can keep that up as they move on throughout the rest of the season. And now moving on to San Jose, where a odd one, right? So like I said, a lot of the similar tendencies, the hard work, the speed, the relentlessness, the wave after wave of attack. The problem in San Jose was, I don't think the defense was any lesser than it was. Some standout moments, but in Seattle, the goals came in some lapses in transition, and Troy Terry even owned up to his own turnover in one of those. Jackson Lacombe said that it's just about sort of defending those better, and Quenneville the same. But San Jose, I think Joel Quenneville sort of gave a good answer of that. It was one of those games for when we're talking about the goaltending specifically with Peter Mrazek, who gets his first start as a Duck. When he named Mrazek the starter in the morning skate, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think to push back at all. Why not Dostal both games? It was just a thing of, to me at least, okay, 2 games of a road trip, season opening roadie. You get Mrazek in there against San Jose, the lesser of the two teams are playing in theory, and get him a game. Going forward, I don't know when Peter Mrazek might play again. It will certainly be on the road trip, I would have to think, but what game? I think this game has to put a little doubt in there, but as Quenneville said in the post game, he figures that it's one of those games that a goaltender wants to get right back at it and make up for it, the next time around, which is not the most direct answer he could have given. I asked simply, did he have any concerns about Mrazek play that night? And he said it's one of those games. So I think it's still a better answer than we've heard in recent years about criticizing a player in particular, just sort of acknowledging without saying it. Yeah, he didn't have a good night, but it's one game and we'll see what happens next time. So we will see what happens next time with Peter Mrazek, but not a lot of confidence instilled there. And the other problem was the penalties. And Quenneville has been pretty upfront about trying to address the Ducks' penalty woes that have extended years at this point, right? And we've all seen this if we've been following this team for long enough, that there is a issue when it comes to just staying out of the penalty box. And whether it's some perceived grudge by the referees against the Ducks, which I know people have long conspired that that's the case. I think there's just situations where the Ducks are doing dumb stuff. And Quenneville kind of said as much, that some of the penalties that they took, particularly the 2 delay of games they took, have nothing to do with the run of the game, right? And I think it was sort of a quiet point out of Frank Vetrano maybe a little bit, because Frank got benched late in the game in Seattle. I think he took a penalty there. I didn't notice that he wasn't playing towards the end of the San Jose game. I think Quenneville sort of alluded that it was hard to hold somebody accountable in the San Jose game just because of how crazy things were going. You needed everybody out there to get a chance. But he said that there needs to be accountability, and whether that is ice time, whether that is, finding some other way to move guys around, they're going to try to address this penalty thing. And I think that's a good answer from Quenneville, because again, this has been a problem for a while. But over the course of the San Jose game, I think the other thing to take note of is, again, just the incredible work of the Mason Cutter Beckett line, who Quenneville dubbed the new kid line. Cutter had 9 shots, 2 goals. Mason had 3 assists. Beckett had a power play goal and another assist, his first multi-point game of his career. It's kind of incredible how well that line has come together, particularly considering they weren't even supposed to be together as early as a day before the season started. It wasn't until Strom's injury that forced Mikael Granlund down to the third line center, that allowed Beckett to move up to the second line wing, and it's working. It's working incredibly well, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but it's hard to imagine that not going. And then the other standout, of course, Leo and Chris Kreider breaking through. Kreider with a couple goals, both of them with Leo's assist, kind of similar to the end of the Los Angeles preseason game, right? Where that line took over with the extra attacker, did what it needed to do, and imposed its will. And I think this shows just... I think there's great things coming forward for Leo Carlsson. I think Chris Kreider is a huge help to him in terms of being a net front presence, causing havoc, and retrieving pucks and finishing off those chances that others might. And we've wanted to see the reuniting of Leo and Cutter for the speed aspect, but when it comes to, like, for lack of a better phrase, a half court game, like playing inside the zone, Kreider and Leo work really well together. Now that also takes Troy Terry off that line, and Alex Killorn moves in. Killorn played with Leo a lot, as we know, last season. So very interesting to see how that plays out going forward. It looks like they're going to stay together for the home opener tomorrow. So we'll see how that plays out when we get to that point. So when we do these, I want to keep it quick when it comes to the game recaps, because you guys have seen the games, and for the most part, you've hopefully been reading my coverage, just watching the interviews, so you know kind of the tenor of what went on. My thoughts on the road trip as a whole, for the Ducks perspective, we'll start there. I think there's a lot of positive to be taken out of this. The style of play is immediately changed. Like there's not a lot of the X's and O's that are slightly different quite yet. I think we're going to be seeing more of that, as we saw some differences being put into the power play, which finally clicked in San Jose. But and you're seeing more of it on the defensive end in terms of the scheme. But offensively, it is about pure effort and elbow grease and hard work. The Ducks are forechecking. They're getting sticks in lanes. They're recovering those pucks, and they are shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting. And it is a little funny to me, as someone that listened to Greg Cronin say after every game and every practice that we talked to him, how they wanted to be a high shot volume team, that they weren't good enough to get by on their skill alone, and they needed to put up shot after shot after shot. And yet, for some reason, they still couldn't do that with him. They were unable to be that hot shot volume team. I think in particular because of how they were trying to create these things. There was a lot of just high, low, high, low, high, low. And they just simply weren't generating enough. But Quenneville has come in and set a different tone for this team. And while the simplicity of the message might be the same, you have to skate hard and you got to shoot the puck. there is a difference in how it is being implemented. And I think that is immediately evident through 2 games. Whether they can keep up this pace, we'll see. Today was an interesting look into that too, because it was a 30-minute practice. And they did a little bit of an extra power play session, but the main practice was 30 minutes, which is just, it has not been the case the last few seasons for the Ducks. So they are conserving their energy, not being lazy, not just not working hard. They're using that time efficiently and hard. Like, I think the second half of practice was almost all this line rush drill where it's basically a back and forth scrimmage. They just don't stop playing. New line comes on after every run down the ice. And there was just so much energy and efficiency being put out there in the practice. I was quite impressed with that in terms of just a pace of play thing. And we talked about the lineup. So Killorn moves up to the top line. Troy Terry moves down to the third line. And Beckett Sennecke obviously sliding in there on the second line. It's, I like Ryan Strome a lot as a player, as a personality in the room. He's, immaculate. But it's hard to look at the lineup and say, okay, when Ryan Strome comes back, where does he go? What do you do with a guy that can be a productive player? And he can play center, he can play wing, but does he bump down to the fourth line? Does he go to a wing spot on that third line? Does Frank Vetrano get punished further for some of these early mistakes to go down to the fourth line? I think there's something to be said about, and Quenneville has mentioned this before, there's going to be a meritocracy to these things. That if you're succeeding, we're going to run with it. And if you're not succeeding, but if you are messing up, you are going to get held accountable in ways that Greg Cronin simply did not. Like, yes, there was the McTavishes and the Zegras saga and all that sort of stuff, but Quenneville seems to be distributing this evenly early on. So curious how that goes forward. Now, the Sennecke plan, I'm going to drill down on a little bit more specifics when we get to talk to Quenneville at Morning Skate tomorrow, but he simply can't be playing this much, right? Like he's 19. He should run out of energy at some point. He will get physically beat up a little bit at some point, but you can't break up this line when it's working as well as it is. I guess we'll find out at some point whether it's a Mason Cutter thing making this work and Beckett is a beneficiary of it. I think Mason, when I asked him about the line success today, said that it is like he's certainly helping out and being in the right spots. But there's a lot of hard work being done by Cutter and Mason too. And this wasn't him calling him out or anything. I think it's just a function of how things are. Cutter specifically said that after the San Jose game, that they don't feel like an island when they're out there, that they always have support. There's always another guy. And I do think Beckett is pulling his weight in that regard too. He is forechecking. He's getting his sticks in lanes. You look at that first goal that Cutter Gauthier scored in San Jose, as Patrick Present of the Hockey News pointed out in video on Twitter, the reason that goal worked, why Cutter was able to get sprung, was a deft little stick check in the neutral zone by Beckett Sennecke to lift the stick of the San Jose Shark, allow the puck to go through, and Cutter was there to go in and snipe the puck. So very interesting on how that's going to keep going forward. And I think Leo and Kreider have been unlocked. Killorn is a guy that is about getting the puck to Leo in space. He said that last season. He reiterated that today. So again, curious how he fits in on that line full time. It worked late in the game, obviously, with the game tying goal. But Killorn even said that him and Kreider kind of do similar things, that they do. Both of them like to go to the net front a bit. They both like to be physical down low and try to get those pucks back. But maybe that's just the thing to do, that you have these two hardworking wingers that are going to get to the net front and most importantly, get the puck back to Leo Carlsson, who can do more work in space up top than he can necessarily down low. And if he does generate those shots up high, you have two guys down there that can finish it off. So I think that might be an interesting play going forward. But Joel Quenneville has not. I think in each one of these games there has been some line juggling. So Joel Quenneville is not married to a lineup. Let's make that clear. That these lines, it's funny. I think he takes enjoyment out of us asking him so much about line combinations, because he's sort of made it very clear that these things can change game to game, shift to shift, depending on what the team needs. And that's very clear that they're willing to adjust on the fly, and it's working right now for the Anaheim Ducks. As far as a personal side of this, I got to experience the team on the road. I've covered the team in LA a couple times, and yeah, it's still visiting locker room and unfamiliar setup, but it's a drive. It's not traveling there. It's not going to the morning skate. It's not all that sort of stuff. So for me, this is my first real road trip covering this team, really covering any team. Like I've covered plenty of high school teams when they go on the road or something, but that's not quite this level. So it was a great experience for me. I loved it. I loved getting to see the different game presentations in Seattle and San Jose. I loved figuring out the nuances of each arena and how that goes. But it's an interesting lifestyle, to kind of go on the road and change city to city, day to day, and get your work done and try to experience where you are and not feel like you're trapped in a hotel room. But I really enjoyed Seattle as a city. First time being there. I was glad that I carved out a couple hours. I could have just gone back to the hotel room and napped. But, from morning skate, I made a point to explore the city and walk around, and it was a good time. San Jose, I had this image in my head of San Jose as just being office park suburbia, which it is, but there is a downtown. And I went and explored. I got some recommendations from you guys on Twitter and other places of place to go, place to eat. Great Mexican food. Went to the San Pedro market. Total vibe. Good place to sit down and work, as I did after the morning skate on Saturday. And it was an experience in total of covering the team and being the morning skate, and especially the San Jose game, getting to experience that I really want to do more of these trips. It's inspired me to do more. I already had one scheduled. I will be going to Boston on this road trip next week. So not all the games. It's a long road trip. I was hoping to maybe go down to the Florida games. I have some family down there, but it just didn't work out. But I am going to be in Boston for that game. So that'll be a fun experience. And I'm looking forward to maybe doing more. I'm looking maybe at Vegas next month. That's an easy one to fill in there. Maybe another trip to San Jose at some point this year. Utah in the mix. But none of this can be possible, again, if it's not for you guys giving me the support by, reading my stories, watching these videos. And again, if you want to help make this coverage even better, I don't like necessarily shaking the hat as much as I am, but consider a subscription on Patreon. Anything that's raised through there will go directly back into the work as we try to make this thing bigger and better and get this thing going. So, but with that mentioned, I think there's not too much left to kind of cover from these games. We talked about them. I was on the ground. There was videos posted. Watch all of that on the Sporting Tribune YouTube. Read the stories on the Sporting Tribune for all the written coverage and insight and stats and all that. And we're just getting ready for the home opener tomorrow night against Pittsburgh. So that'll be a fun one. So with the nitty-gritty of the games out of the way, let's open the mailbag for our first monthly Monday mailbag. Let's open up our first monthly Monday mailbag of the season. We got a slew of pretty good responses here from all you guys across all the social media. And, of course, on Patreon, where if you subscribe to, I believe it's the Eggplant and Jade tier is what we're calling it. This is the only way to guarantee that your question gets asked and answered here on Ducks in Deep when we do these once a month, every month. Usually going to be the first Monday of the month. That's kind of the idea. Obviously, we started mid-month here in October, so number one in a couple weeks, but we'll get there. So, trim down some of these questions. Can't fit them all in here. Can't stay here all night. But the only way to guarantee you get your answer for your question is to subscribe on Patreon. And that little bit, again, helps support me, this show and our coverage to try to make this bigger and better, and we'll invest back into the product and make things better for you guys watching and listening back at home. All right, so we'll start with the Patreon questions, and we'll open with a question from Lord of Chaos. How does the team look so far? How does the offense, defense, power play, penalty kill look compared to last year? So a very broad question. Let's kind of touch on this a bit. They looked instantly better, right? Right off the hop in that period in Seattle, the opening period, they were fast, they were relentless. In the arena, they show the in-between period interviews, and I forget who they got for Seattle. I think it was Vince Dunn, because I believe he scored the first goal. They asked him, what was going on in the period, and he said that the Ducks were just coming in wave after wave after wave. And Alex Killorn said it when we talked this morning, relentless. So as far as the offensive pressure, much better. Defense, again, they let up 6 goals against San Jose, but I don't know that there's any bad defense, at least in terms of the system. So a couple power play goals, which 5-on-3 goal from the point, a 1 from behind. I think those are ones that Mrazek probably has to be better on. The only really bad goal that they've given up, I think, so far was the Ryan Reeves goal. Drew Hellison just gets beats on the outside, and Ryan Reeves shoves it short side on Mrazek. Bad on Hellison, bad on Mrazek, and it's something that's fixable. Certainly, again, and it's in the rush. I don't think that's the defensive system faltering there. That's just a bad play and a bad stop attempt. Power play, obviously we got the 2 goals against San Jose. I think it's going to improve as we go along too. It's just a matter of getting the reps. And I think the thing that makes it look better already, and this will be a heartening thing for many of you out there, they're not standing still. There is movement on the power play. There is puck movement. There is body movement. There is traffic in front. So those are the things you want to see. Penalty kill could be better. I think there's certainly a lot more work that needs to go on there. Penalty kill systems are hard to parse for me personally. And the other thing is, Quenneville even said during the preseason, the penalty kill looks good depending on if the goaltender is good. So I thought that Dostal made the penalty kill look pretty decent against Seattle, and against San Jose, Peter Mrazek wasn't as good. So, that's kind of the story of those games. So everything looks generally better, I think, so far. So we'll see how that goes. We'll go to Mitch on the Patreon. How is the team handling Sennecke's success? What's the general locker room feel around him? I mean, he's 19 and he's having a great time. He walks in with a big smile on his face, and all these guys are happy to have this kid come in, and they all rave about his skill, particularly the veterans. His deception on the rush, his hands. Again, it's just that hockey IQ. He knows where to be. He plays smart. He's playing smarter. So I think everybody's happy for him. It's a little hard to gauge after both of these games. It was kind of hard to gauge where they are with Beckett. So after the Seattle game, obviously they lost. They're not thrilled about the loss. They're not really celebrating, even though, Beckett scored his first goal. Troy Terry, kind of celebrated him a little bit as he could in our interview, but not a lot there. Didn't get to catch up with him at a practice the next day because there was no practice. They had plane trouble in Seattle, so that got canceled. And then in San Jose, talked to him a bit at the morning skate, and everybody seemed pretty upbeat about it, generally happy. And then can't really follow up about the second goal because it was just such a crazy game that we're not really asking about Beckett in that situation. So I think he's fitting in really well. He's 19. He's trying to figure it out. Mason, I overheard him talking to, I think it was Ali Lozoff, and saying that it's kind of weird where it's like, as a guy that's been here, that's you're established, are you trying to help him out? It's like Mason's only 3 years older than Beckett, so they're actually pretty similar. And Cutter is only 2 years older than Beckett, so they are the kid line for a reason, and I think they're gelling well together. Let's go to Liam from the Patreon. What do we think Coach Q does with Sennecke when Strome returns? Does he break up that kid line that's having so much success, or does Strome slot into 4C? Curious what you think. What I think is Strome's a veteran and he's going to be back in the lineup, especially in a situation where he hasn't done anything to lose his spot in the lineup. Now, did he slot into 4C? I don't think that that's the case. That's why you have Ryan Poehling. Now, has Poehling played up to what you want so far? He took the bad penalty in San Jose. I really haven't had any thoughts about the fourth line in either game, to be honest. I think Poehling does a good job at what he is here to do, at least what we saw in the preseason. Kind of need more time to cook on what that is as far as the fourth line. And we have another question down the road here that we'll get to about that. I think you can't break up the kid line. Like, it's as long as it's working, you keep it together. The only thing that would maybe break it up, and again, like as I mentioned earlier in the video, get a little bit more clarity on this tomorrow, is what the plan is for Beckett in terms of his physical nature. Like, if he is playing every game, like when they did the Leo plan, it was 2 games a week and never back-to-backs. And even when there wasn't a back-to-back, they would take a game off. This road trip is going to be a good test where it's a 5-game roadie. I mean, they've got, I think, 4 games in all of next week before, the finale there in Tampa or Florida is the last game. So how they handle him on this road trip, I think, will tell a lot. And again, we'll try to get some clarity when we ask tomorrow, but look to see what happens on this road trip as far as what Sennecke's playing time is going to be. I think Strome returning doesn't change the calculus with that too much. He can, if he's not playing center, he can shift to the wing. And whether that's on that third line and somebody else gets moved around, if it's on the fourth line, I don't think that's where he might be. But Quenneville has also not shown particular loyalties to making sure someone sticks there. As we said, he had Frank Vetrano before in Florida, and he's been the one that's been seemingly got some early discipline so far in terms of ice time. So hard to tell. I think we're all trying to figure this out together as far as what Quenneville's doing with this. Last Patreon question from Doug. Now that the season has started, how much teaching is being done during morning skates and off-day practices? With such a new staff and many new systems, surely the teaching doesn't stop at the end of training camp. But knowing how little practice time there is during the season and how rare it is to have a full roster on the ice, I'm curious how much time they're spending on installations, adjustments on special teams, even striking, etc. I think today, this is one of the reasons why I waited to do the mailbag until after practice today, rather than recording it late Sunday. 1, I was tired from the travel. 2, I was curious of this myself to kind of see what practice was going to be like, because we didn't get that in-season practice the other day. A lot of the practices have seemed the same, honestly. Like, there's the same drills to start off the practice. There's the line rushes in the middle of it. I think where the work is getting done is in 2 places. In the video room, particularly. They've mentioned seeing things on video and then kind of just implementing and working hard. And today, like I mentioned, it was a short normal practice, and then half the guys left the rink quickly. And we weren't told, we're not given the practice sheet ahead of time. So when they left, we're like, oh, they're going out of the locker room. Let's go. And we were told that they went over to the other rink to go work on the power play stuff. And they were implementing some changes as to how they're working there, working on their routes, working on that movement. And so I think when it comes to the Quenneville practice, right now, the number one thing I think is, first and foremost, work ethic, working hard, not taking any shift off, speed, work, grind. Secondly, I think the number 2 priority is still that defensive system work. When they are working on stuff, it is those double teams on the wall. It is shifting their coverage. It's things like that. Because as they've said, like, you want to limit the amount of time you're spending on the defensive play so that you can go into the offensive zone and then forecheck the hell out of a team and make those chances, wear them down, and get your shots and shoot, like we've seen in those couple games. So it's a little bit of both. But I think in terms of the on-ice stuff, when they are doing teaching, it's after the hard work is done. Because when they're doing the teaching, they are walking through things. So you're seeing that with the power play early. And I think most of everything else is being done in the video room, but something to track from my end of things as we go into the season here. So those are the Patreon questions. Those are the ones that are guaranteed to be answered. Again, subscribe on Patreon to make sure your questions get answered for next month's monthly mailbag. But we'll go on to some of the other ones from around social media. From Instagram, we'll start with Cassidy, who asks, will Q ever end up splitting Helleson and Mintyukov? It's a serious question. I think as we've seen with the line juggling so far, will he consider it? Absolutely. I think the thing that's tough with the defensive pairs right now is there's continuity from last season with Gudas and Lacombe and Trouba and Zellweger to an extent. And Trouba also played with Mintyukov, but he sort of switched off with those guys late in the year. And those are working okay. Like Jackson and Gudas clearly work together. Especially if Gudas is healthy and playing well, which he seems to be right now. No issues on my end so far with Radko Gudas. Jacob Trouba hit and miss, but I think his job is to be the steady man to let Zellweger roam and play. But that's also sort of what you would want to see from Mintyukov. So could that get flipped at some point? I think if there's reason to do so, they will. The Minty Helly thing, it's hard to put a finger on what's not working there, but it is certainly off. And it's not something that we're going to dive into with them quite yet. You sort of let them figure it out, because I think that would be the answer at this point, is they're figuring it out. But it is curious. I'm also curious to see what happens. We anticipate they'll call up a defenseman for the road trip because, you can handle things with San Diego easily when you're at home or on the West Coast. Not so easy when you're going to be in Chicago, then Boston, Nashville, etc. So does that necessitate a change in the defense? I don't know. But I think until there's like a major issue, they're going to just sort of leave things as they are on the back end. Not really a great answer, but that is what it is right now. There's not extra insight on that part. Also from Instagram, this is another quick one, kind of tandem. Bradley asked, what's the plan with Tristan Luneau? Thought he had a great camp. Will he get a call up? He will certainly be on the list of top guys to get called up when the need arises, but they want him to play minutes. Verbeek said so on the podcast he did with the team right after the end of training camp. And it was sort of what we suspected, where some of the defensemen that got sent down, not because they didn't have good camps. I thought Luneau had a great camp also. I thought he looked NHL ready. But is he going to be playing regular minutes? And even if he is in, let's say they bring him up and swap him with Helleson. If Helleson truly is, like, he was the guy that got burned on that Reeves goal, as we said. Is he the guy that gets split up there? And, I think, could they put him there? Maybe, but I think they also want him to be playing just more time. And it is a third line pair. Good for that. Hard to say. But I think they want him to start the season in San Diego, get some good first team defense reps under his belt. And I have no doubt that should there be the need to call up somebody for that right side in particular, Tristan Luneau will be up there immediately. Should it be injury, or should it just be Helleson not pulling his weight? And could you say that he's not after 2 games? Maybe. But then do you want to pair him with Mintyukov, 2 guys that like to get up the ice? There's a lot of things in that mix. So again, I'm sorry that there's not a better answer for that right this second. But the plan is playing minutes in San Diego. I think that's kind of the long and short of that. And we'll go to Reddit. We'll stretch this out a little bit. From Disgruntled Aardvark. Given Sennecke's first 2 games, does it seem like management is going to follow the McTavish plan, where they basically stall out the year with AHL conditioning stints, World Juniors, scratches, or follow the Carlson plan, load management, but keep him with the Ducks for the full year? Based on the comments that we've gotten so far, it feels like the plan as of now, and especially with his success, is to keep him up the full season. They will rest him at points, I imagine. I'm curious if they will give him the World Junior opportunity, because he did get snubbed from the team last year. But again, if he's playing well enough, I think even if you asked him, Like, yes, everybody wants that international experience. They want to play World Juniors. But if you can be on a productive line in the NHL and pull your weight, I think you'd rather be doing that. So it seems like the initial impression right now is Carlson plan, but I'm curious what happens, where he's at in a month's time or so, and we can reevaluate and see if World Juniors is a possibility. But, he only has 9 games before they burn that contract, and they've played 2, and it seems like he's going to play 3. So curious how that goes. And then also from Reddit, Cherokee Hawkman chimes in with, why is Johnston still in the lineup? What is management seeing in him that is worth dressing over Colangelo or Nestorenko? The Ross Johnston question. It's interesting because when the fourth line was first put together for the season, it was Johnston on the left, Paling in the middle, and Beckett Sennecke on the right. And I had assumed that Johnston's playtime would essentially be handcuffed to Beckett Sennecke, that he would be out there for the pure purposes of, if somebody were to rough up the rookie, you go over and give him what's worth. But now that Beckett's moved up and he's seemingly holding his own, and he's with a guy in Mason McTavish that can push around, why is he still in the lineup? Well, to fight Ryan Reeves, I guess. And then they swapped out Colangelo and Nestorenko in each one of those games. And to be perfectly honest, I don't get it either. My fourth line coming into the year was going to be Colangelo, Paling, Nestorenko. I felt like Colangelo had done enough in the previous regime to establish, hey, I'm a productive player. I can play at this level. I can slot up in the top 6 if you need me. Put me in there. Nestorenko also showed some scoring pop, some skating, some forechecking. That clearly hasn't, held over to the Quenneville regime. And it feels like Sam Colangelo needs to reprove himself again to get there. And, I don't know that Sam has been fully fulfilled with what his role is right now. I don't think he's pleased with it. I'm sure he would like to be playing regularly and given some more responsibility, but that's just sort of where things are at the moment. I think Quenneville does have that streak of old school in him still, that he would like to have that type of player on the roster should the need, in Johnston, to throw hands when need be. But I think I'm in agreement with you too, that I don't know why Ross Johnston is getting those minutes over Colangelo and Nestorenko, especially now that Beckett has moved up in the lineup. The lines were similar today. Johnston was still part of the fourth line at practice today. See if that changes at morning skate tomorrow, but that's sort of where we're at right now with that. So that's the mailbag. Again, if you want your questions guaranteed to be answered, subscribe on Patreon, and we'll be able to answer those questions next month when we do the next monthly mailbag. And consider your subscription again to support my work here and try to make things better. And as the season goes along and we get more comfortable with settling into these things, I'm looking into getting more perks for our subscribers, maybe weekly mailbags, if people are into that, and we can answer more questions on the regular for Patreon subscribers only to make that fair. And that's only fair if you're willing to give some support to me in that way. I'll be eternally grateful, and we'll again put all that right back into the work and make things better here. So again, we're ready for the home opener tomorrow, ready to roll through the rest of the season here. We're off on the right foot. Ducks are forechecking hard. They're playing hard, and we're working just as hard here at Ducks in Deep in the Sporting Tribune. So subscribe to the Sporting Tribune here on YouTube, at Sporting Trib on all platforms. If you want all the latest Ducks coverage, video, written stuff on the website at thesportingtribune.com for all the morning skate reports, post-game reports, and some features that I'm working on now that we're into the season. Get some in-depth stuff with some of these guys and get to know them a bit better and maybe analyze the team a bit more in the written form. That's where I got my start. It's where we'll continue to be as much as we're augmenting this with our video coverage. And if you're going to look for all of that stuff as well, subscribe everywhere you can subscribe, but follow me on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Zach Cav. That's at ZACHCAV. and on Twitter or on TikTok and Blue Sky at Zach Cav Sports. Every month we're going to be asking the questions there as well. You can get those in. If they make the cut, then we'll answer them here, in addition to our Patreon-only questions from our subscribers. So until then, with the home opener on the way and another game on Thursday, see you at the rink.